Welcome to the Literary Titan podcast. In every episode, we dive into a book we've just read and share our thoughts, from best-selling authors to rising literary stars. We read it. Now let's talk about it.
Racial Healing, One Man's Journey to Benin Republic, Africa, is part memoir, part cultural meditation, part spiritual argument, and it moves through all three modes with real urgency. Glenville C. Ashby begins with personal fracture, tracing the racial, religious, and psychological tensions that shaped him in Trinidad and later in the United States, then follows that inner unrest back to Benin, where ancestry, history, ritual, and grief converge. The book returns again and again to vivid sights and scenes: the slave route in Ouidah, the door of no return, the temple of pythons, the author's initiations into Vodun, and his attempt to make sense of identity not just as biography, but as inheritance. Along the way, Ashby builds a larger framework around trauma, diaspora, religion, colorism, memory, and what he calls healing, with concepts like the fractured self, womb therapy, and the 4R model carrying much of the book's intellectual weight. Ashby writes like someone trying to survive his own questions. I felt that especially in the passages where he stands at Ouidah, imagining the clanking of chains, then shifts almost instinctively into prayer for his parents and ancestors, and later in the sections where a DNA result becomes less a novelty than a wound reopening with purpose. That movement, from history to body, from abstraction to ache, gives the book its pulse. I also admired the fact that he doesn't present healing as neat or enlightened. It's messy, charged, sometimes unsettling, sometimes defiant. Even when I wasn't fully persuaded by every conclusion, I never doubted the sincerity of the search, and that matters. It gives the book its gravity. At its best, Ashby has a grave, almost incantatory cadence, and some images are genuinely haunting. His descriptions of Ouidah, his reflections on colorism in Trinidad, and the tension between Catholic inheritance and African spiritual reclamation have real force. The prose can become declarative. Still, I found the ideas interesting because they are clearly lived ideas, not borrowed postures. Ashby's central insistence that historical trauma must be addressed psychologically and spiritually, rather than only politically, is provocative and often compelling. I appreciated that the book is willing to trouble easy moral scripts, particularly in its treatment of reparations, forgiveness, African complicity, and the silence surrounding shame. It wants something harder than outrage. It wants transformation, and that gives it a distinctive moral temperature. Racial Healing is earnest, often moving, and never emotionally vacant. It isn't a tidy academic study, and it isn't a conventional travel memoir either. It's a searching book, written by someone trying to stitch together a self under the pressure of history. I came away respecting it most for its vulnerability, and for the seriousness with which it treats the psychic afterlife of slavery, colonialism, and estrangement. I'd recommend it to readers interested in diaspora, Black identity, spirituality, post-colonial psychology, and memoirs that are willing to be intellectually ambitious without losing the heat of lived experience. For the right reader, this book could feel less like an argument and more like a reckoning.
Thanks for joining us on the Literary Titan podcast. If today's review sparked your interest, be sure to pick up a copy of the book and experience it for yourself. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating, or share it with a fellow book lover. Until next time, keep reading, not just to escape, but to grow.